Next, we have a duo story, which yes, I know. Some of you must have come for that specifically. Lisa and Laura are giving a duo story, and I won't tell too many details about their bio because they're going to tell you a lot of that, but hence the two mics, right? So they were in a Valentine's Day show a couple of years ago sharing their story. They were the first duo on our stage, and I don't know, maybe there's been two others since them or something, but they're bringing the power of that story to our stage tonight. So welcome, Lisa and Laura.
Oh my gosh, I'm nervous. We were told we would see a black void. Hi, my name's Laura. And throughout middle school, high school, and college, my friends called me the boy crazy one. It was a well-earned nickname because I can remember all the way back to kindergarten when Ryan broke my heart every time he chose to hold Amy's hand when we took a walk around the block. First, second, and third grade, my crush was Zach, and I wrote his name on my desk in eraser. In fourth and fifth grade, Tony's brown hair and brown eyes captured my heart. You get the picture.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and or Adrian in other circles. And growing up, I was seen more as a tomboy. I remember one Christmas, I asked Santa for a sex change. I think the appropriate term now would be gender reassignment surgery, but Santa didn't deliver.
I had a string of boyfriends from 7th grade until the age of 22 when I met my future husband, Adam.
I dated boys because that's what a girl is supposed to do. I had my best friend, Alex, so I had a guy, and I didn't really need to go anywhere else. I knew I was a little different, but I didn't know what it was, and I really didn't care.
From the age of 22 to 35, my life was pretty heteronormative. After graduating from UF, Adam and I moved to New York, where I became a flight attendant. Some years later, we moved back to Florida for graduate school. We got married. I became a teacher. We started a family. Pretty standard. My life was on track as far as I could tell.
When I was 21, I was living in Miami with my parents, and one evening at the dining room table, my mom and I were stuffing thank you envelopes for my older sister Tiffany's wedding. And I mentioned to her that I didn't think that I wanted to get married. And she responded, "Oh, you don't think you want to get married?" Long pause, looking over her glasses. "Or you don't think you want to get married to a man?" And by the way, my mom's a retired therapist, so she opened the door for my coming out, something that she knew needed to happen when I was 10. Over those next 10 years, I was working as a photographer. I lived different places, dated different people, and eventually found myself back in Miami, living with my parents, figuring out what was next with my life. And what was next was going to be a career change to occupational therapy, which would take me back to Gainesville.
Over the course of the 13 years from the age of 22 to 35, I found myself back in Gainesville as well. I was teaching 5th grade and raising my family. It was during a gifted certification course in the fall of 2012, when I was 35 years old, that I met a woman who would ultimately change the direction of my life. I'm going to call her Shane. Shane was a lesbian, I was pretty sure, and I was drawn to her, but I didn't spend much time thinking about it because I became pregnant with my second child, who was born in August of 2013. Shane and I remained friends, but it really wasn't until the summer of 2014 over dinner one night for her birthday that we revealed we'd experienced feelings for one another. This revelation caught me completely off guard.
My girlfriend and I moved to Gainesville in 2010, and I began the OT program. We eventually broke up, and I dated other people, knowing that eventually I was going to move to Seattle after I graduated. The clinical rotations for OT took me all over, and the last one before graduation took me to Chicago in the fall of 2014.
Around the same time that Lisa was starting her final rotation, I started seeing a therapist for these now very real feelings. Only my sister and my 3 best friends knew what I was experiencing. The more time I spent with Shane, the stronger my feelings for her became, and the more confused I got. What did these feelings mean? I was married, mostly happily, and I had never before in my life experienced sexual attraction for another woman.
Chicago was hell. A story for another story summit, I assure you. I was on the phone with my advisor multiple times saying, I just need to get out of this situation. And she agreed and said that I should come back to Gainesville, finish out my rotation at Shands, but it would tack on more time to my program, and I would not be graduating with my class. I said, I'll take it. I don't care. This needs to happen. And I knew something good had to come from this. I didn't know what it was, but something good had to come. And as my dad likes to say, jump and the net will appear, which is very interesting for my dad, a retired insurance man.
I love her parents. I remember Halloween that year, Halloween of 2014. One of my closest friends, Tammy, has a great neighborhood for trick-or-treating, and I plan on taking my kids there. Tammy casually mentioned that her best friend Lisa was back in town and would be joining us. I remember the next therapy session clearly. I told my therapist how excited I was to meet Lisa, a real-life lesbian. Would I be attracted to her too? At this point, Shane was the only lesbian I knew and hung out with, and I really needed validation that I wasn't attracted just to this one particular woman, but for other women as well. However, I knew that if I felt attracted to Lisa, I would have a real problem on my hands.
Back in Gainesville, in the fall, I was placed with a wonderfully kind and compassionate clinical supervisor at Shands, and I couldn't have been happier. My best friend Tammy had called me up and asked if I would go trick-or-treating with her and her family in her neighborhood, and I had other plans, so I couldn't. But then a couple weeks after that, she called me begging me to join her game night, Bunko, because she had a last-minute cancellation. Actually, she told me I was coming, so I had no other choice, so I accepted.
Bunko night, November 2014. After the disappointment of Halloween, I was thrilled to learn that Lisa would be joining us for my first Bunko night. After we were introduced, we hung out in Tammy's kitchen forever, or like 20 minutes, and we talked about everything from our families to tattoos to traveling until Lisa had to fill up her wine glass.
At the bar, I was standing with Tammy filling up my wine glass, and I asked out of the corner of my mouth, "What's up with your friend Laura?" My gaydar was picking up on some vibes. She just said she'd fill me in later.
When Bunko began, I would have rather have continued talking with Lisa.
Of course she would have. Later, Tammy filled me in on what was going on with her friend Laura, and I decided that I could be her friend and help her out in this difficult time before my move to Seattle.
After that night, we hung out together a few more times with Tammy and a couple of other good friends. And one night, Lisa texted me because she'd gotten my number from Tammy, and that started our friendship through text messages.
I remember I would get really excited when my phone would ding with the text, and I'd look down and see the letters LAU pop up, and only to be mildly disappointed when it turned out to be my sister Lauren. Sorry, Lauren, I love you.
That January of 2015, was the hardest month of my life. I cried every moment I was alone. I cried on my way to school in the morning. I cried in my classroom when my students left. And of course, I cried on my therapist's couch. I could not see how anything good was going to come of this. My husband still didn't know, and I was afraid I was going to lose everything. Lisa was my friend throughout that month. She understood what I was going through. She was a cute friend, but a friend, that much I knew.
I was coming to the end of my rotation, and I thought that I had no feelings for Laura, this questioning, married mother of 2 young girls, and I let her know that I was just her friend, nothing more.
Yes, she did. She was just my friend. And that was okay, because at that point I was very much hung up on my future with Shane.
I was taking Laura under my little gay wing because she needed help and advice and guidance from a real-life lesbian. And because I knew how much it meant to me when I was in her situation, not completely her situation, but 20 years earlier. Because my generosity knows no bounds, I even offered my experience. So that way, she would have street cred with any future relationships going forward. So she could say she's actually been with a woman before I moved to Seattle.
My cheeks were probably as much on fire as they are right now when that offer came to the table.
However, this offer was contingent on the fact that her husband knew exactly what was going on.
And Adam did not know. In fact, I was 100% sure that he could not know until I was confident that I could walk away from my marriage. I didn't think he would be able to stay married to me once he knew these feelings had surfaced. The decision of when to tell him came in the middle of that January, one night after I sent a hysterical text to my 3 best friends. Jessica, who lives in San Diego, was still awake, and she called me immediately and said the words I'll never forget. She told me, "Laura, you have to tell him. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to him." And she was right. I told Adam on Friday, February 20th, 2015. After the words, "I have feelings for a woman," were out of my mouth, the best case scenario took place. Instead of yelling at me or telling me to leave my house or him getting up and leaving, he took a sobbing me into his arms, told me he loved me and we would figure this out. Yes, he is truly an amazing human.
Some weeks later, we were sitting on Laura's couch and having a couple of glasses of wine, talking. Actually, I was doing most of the talking, and she was sitting there silently, smiling at me, much like she's doing now. And I eventually said that I wanted to kiss her.
So I said, "Come closer then." And she did.
And I did. That's not it. A couple of weeks after that, I was down in Miami having lunch with my mom and the retired therapist, and I let her know that I was having feelings for Laura, this married, questioning mother of 2 young girls. Mind you, I didn't want to get married, and I didn't want kids, I thought. And my mother was unenthusiastic. She was really concerned for my safety. She said, "What if he comes after you?" And I told her, I was like, "Well, I don't know him all that well, but I can tell you that's not who he is, and I'm going to be okay." I said, "My plan will be to rent a place in Gainesville for the next year, find a job, and see where this thing goes. Seattle will always be there."
We started exploring this relationship, and Lisa started getting to know my daughters, though we decided we wouldn't show any affection around them. Our relationship formed very slowly, not like all the traditional lesbian relationships where there's a U-Haul really early on.
So for those not in the know, what does a lesbian bring on her second date?
A U-Haul. Not us. So initially, Adam moved out of our house, and throughout the course of that year, at the end of the trial year, Lisa moved in with me. And a couple of days later, on a whim, we went to an open house and made an offer. About a month after that, we moved into our new home together.
Cue the U-Haul. That was about 5 years ago when our relationship began, and now we are a modern family that consists of us, our girls, 6 and 9, their father, Adam, his partner, and to add to our surprise journey, we even joined a church, UCG, which is amazing.
Never thought we'd join a church.
Never thought I would join a church. And in April,
we got married. Woohoo!
So who would have thought that fateful bunco night, thank you, Tammy, would have ended up with this beautiful modern family that consists of friends and family that love and support us no matter what. Thank you.